Most early stage founders don't fail because they have a bad idea. They fail because they build too much, assume too much, and test too little. In this episode, I sit down with my good friend Andrew Ackerman, a founder, investor, professor, and author of The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. And we talk about what actually separates ideas that turn into real businesses from ideas that never get off the ground. And what makes this conversation so valuable is how practical Andrew actually makes it. We talk about how to think like an investor, how to test your idea before wasting time and money, how to find the pain point your business should actually be solving, and why the best founders don't just follow their gut. They learn how to prove their assumptions correct. So if you're building a business, thinking about starting one, or just trying to figure out why your idea hasn't clicked yet, this episode will help you think clearer and build with more intention. And if there's one more thing I could ask you to do, you know what it is. It's hit that like and subscribe down below. Drop a comment as well from what your biggest takeaway from this episode was. I would really love to know. We're coming out with new episodes every Monday. I appreciate everyone for coming in and watching. And yeah, let's get right into it. Just to give you a little rundown of kind of what we do here on the podcast, it's basically for early stage entrepreneurs like myself, diving through the best practices, some ideas that early entrepreneurs could take away and kind of go with. Just to get started, obviously you founded a few companies, invested in a lot of startups, and mentored hundreds of founders. When you look at early stage entrepreneurs today, what do you think early stage entrepreneurs are getting wrong?
So there are a couple of things. Let's just lay the groundwork, right? We talk about early stage startups and entrepreneurs. There's actually like the whole universe of anything that's an early stage company. Like I'm going out there, I'm starting my own law firm, I'm going to buy a car wash. And then there's like this kind of weird, awkward little corner down here, which are the tech startups, Facebook in the day, and Instagram, et cetera. And NVIDIA back ages ago. And they are kind of a unique little subset. It's a little bit weird. So we'll talk, though, about overall for entrepreneurs. So the number one thing a first-time entrepreneur does wrong is they just do rather than testing first. Like they just jump right in. I'm going to go code this, right? That's awesome. I'm going to go build this. Great. 2 months later, they come out and say, here, world, here's what I built. And the world's like, yeah, we don't need that. Or, wow, you built all this, but I don't care about any of that. This one thing's kind of cool. Only it doesn't quite do what I need. A lot of the entrepreneurs will go out there and they'll not only do customer discovery, and that goes without saying, but they'll do it in a very structured way. Let's take a concrete example. Like let's say you're coming up with, and this is one of my students from my class had this last year. She wanted to create a brush with like a water reservoir in it so it could do some misting while she was brushing. Because, she had long hair and she thought it'd be good for mom, younger kids. So, she'd go 3D print that thing and go out there and actually put it in a lot of moms, because that's their initial customer rate, ICP, ideal customer profile. She could put them in their hands and just see how they use it, right? Sometimes, like, don't talk, just put it in their hands, see what happens. Right? If they're like kind of fumbling and they don't know what to press, like, that's a UI problem, right? It means your user interface or your design is not optimal.
Right.
And I have this, like for the tech startups in the room, there's something, I actually talk about this in my book kind of extensively, something called the index card app. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay. So here's what you do. I can go spend like 4 months and create an app for this phone. Or I can go out and buy a pack of index cards for about $8, right? 4x6 index cards. And then I can go to the bank and I can steal a pen, right? Don't pay for pens. Banks give them away for free. That's the other thing. Early stage founders, like, don't pay for things you don't have to.
Right.
Then you find 20 people who you think are your target. And what you've done, though, before you've done is you've taken your pen that you got for free from the bank and the pack of index cards, which, $8 at Staples, and you have sketched on each of them in like just barely legible handwriting and boxes and lines, each screen of your app. Down to like click here buttons, right? Continue buttons. And I say purposely do it like kind of sketchy rather than try to make it super pretty, because you don't want people focusing on design. You want them focusing on like the meat, the actual application. Right. And then what you do is this, right? You say, hey, Barrett, listen, I know I mentioned to you I have this new startup. I don't want to give you too much of a prompt because I want you to come at this like as if you just downloaded this app. And I'm going to give you these index cards. Each index card is a screen of the site, a screen of my app. Don't ask me questions, because if you downloaded this, I'm not here to answer questions. I want you just to interact with that index card as if it were your phone. So if you're swiping, swipe on the index card. push a button, whatever it is. The only thing I want you to do differently is I just want you to verbalize what you're thinking because I can't read your mind. Don't ask me questions. Just say, oh, I'm looking at it. I'm not really sure what this button does. I'm afraid to click it. I'll do this instead. Whatever it is you're thinking, just say it out loud. I'm going to sit here taking notes. And if you swipe or click or do whatever, I'll give you another card for the next page you get to, or the next screen you get to.
Right.
I want to watch. I just want to see what happens. And you let them do that. So what'll happen is you'll realize that a good chunk of the people you do that with never go to parts of the app. They never do it. They don't get there. And then you'll notice that some people kind of get stuck and they don't know what to do. And at some point you'll toss them a lifeline because they don't know what to do. You'll jump in, but you let them sit with it and struggle with it a little bit, and you'll see. So you'll understand stuff you didn't need to code. You'll understand stuff that wasn't clear. You'll understand, they'll get to a point and they're talking out loud. It's like, man, that's really cool. I need this. And oh, but it doesn't have X. I can't use this if it doesn't have X, because they're verbalizing what they think about. And if you do that for 20, 30, 50 people, you get a really good sense of what the market actually needs. And you don't code all the stuff that you don't need. And the stuff that they seem very cool about, but it was missing stuff, that's where you put your time. And if they were looking at stuff and struggling and you kind of had to toss in that lifeline, oh, if you want to do that, that's what this button's about. Just to get things on track, then you have uncovered design issues. And you've done that all for the cost of a
index card,
4x6 index card, and a little minor theft at your local bank.
Before that, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor is my company, Mellow Media. We help businesses show up online without having to do it all themselves. Content creation to social media management, we help turn your ideas, expertise, and brand into consistent content that generates leads and builds trust. So whether you don't know where to start or you simply don't want social media taking over your whole day, my company, Mellow Media, can help you. Check out all of our links in the description. We can help you out. Just hit us up and we'll take it from there. Interesting. So you talked about with your students, what class are you teaching, and are you a college professor?
Yeah, so I'm an adjunct professor, which is a nice way of saying they're going to pay me very, very little. I only do one course this semester. It's entrepreneurship, surprise. And I did it. It's kind of a funny story. So when I wrote my book, let me roll it back a little bit.
You're good.
The book itself is called The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. Again, all ties together. And it's written like a novel about a fictional startup, because I've always found that stories are a better way to memorably get lessons across. I can talk about that a little bit more if you want to, and how I came up with doing this. But when I was writing it, I was at a conference for would-be angel investors. And it was at a school, and the dean of the university comes up. So, I used to write. You might also know I wrote this book called the Founder's Dilemmas was the name of the book. I know that book. That's actually one of the good books. A lot of the business books are deathly boring.
I've heard of that book.
So the guy's name is Noam Wasserman. It's a very good book. One of the key lessons he brings in there, and he's like, guys, if you're founders, you're often going to have to choose between being rich or being the king, right? If you want to make money and scale, and this is usually for startups, tech startups, but you're going to probably have to take money from somebody else, which means you got to give up some control so you can be rich, but you can't be the king.
Right.
Or you might want total control so you don't take money from anyone else, but that means you got to grow slower, so you may not be rich. So those are one of the many dilemmas he talks about in the book. But I'm an expert. I'm like, A, I know that book and it doesn't suck. And B, I'm writing a book. Let's see if I can get an intro to his publisher or his agent. Right? They would say if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. I was very focused on well, I can use it. I ended up meeting him, and he is genuinely a fantastic human being overall, but he's also shockingly good at sales. So when I started telling what I did, and there's a kind of book that had been written a bunch of years ago that was a very popular textbook that was also a novel, but textbook in disguise. But that's also a great book. It's called The Goal. It's not entrepreneurship focused, but I said, no. He's like, well, if you're writing The Goal, but for the entrepreneur's experience and for startups, and you think it might be a textbook potentially as well, you should actually teach entrepreneurship and present your early drafts as part of the material and get feedback from students.
That's smart, right?
I'm like, I didn't drop an F-bomb because this is a religious. I'm like, that's brilliant, right? I'm like, do you have a course like that? And somehow within 2 days, he had gotten me, he's like, well, we already have all the professors that we need for entrepreneurship for this semester, maybe next semester. And then he's like, but I do need someone to teach principles of strategy. Do you know anyone? right? And when the dots are that close, even I can connect them. So like, okay, so I did that. And then like by the second semester, he got me teaching like two courses. One was the one I wanted to teach all along, and the other was his course based on his book, The Founder's Dilemmas. I was like, yeah, it's all set to go. It's no problem. I'm like, okay. So yeah, he's a very good salesperson, but it was also a great experience. It really helped a lot with the book. And I just got the sweetest note from one of my students. We'll see if she still feels this way after the final on the 15th. But I mean, this note about how it really meant a lot to her. She thought she had learned a lot when she did her first business, but this opened her eyes. And then, she included a couple of Ghirardelli's chocolate squares, which, by the way, entrepreneurs giving away chocolate is always good.
Yeah, always.
Conference, put out chocolate. Or pens, but the pens the other founders are going to steal. Like your customers aren't going to steal your pens.
Yeah.
But yeah, chocolates are always good. But it was very, very sweet. Very, very sweet.
Interesting. So off your book, like you said, it's called The Entrepreneur's Odyssey. What was it you felt entrepreneurs needed to be taught from this story, and what was the main point of drafting this book?
Yeah, so I can answer that a couple of different ways. Like the flippant answer is like everything, right? So startups, there's like this, like startups, good startups. The reason the story about a good startup, like really what they did, often kind of seems not so interesting, is because a good startup, all good startups have one thing in common, like all the mistakes that they made, and they made a lot of mistakes, but none of them killed the company, right? So they're kind of the same that way. And the ones that are really interesting, from my perspective over drinks, are the ones that flamed out in kind of like dramatic or crazy ways, the abject lessons of the world. So, but as an investor, like my goal is to kind of help the founders that I've invested in not be those guys, right? So, and I've seen a bunch of them. So I used to go in, and this was when I was an accelerator. Do you guys know what an accelerator is? Do you know?
I'm not sure, no.
Okay. So we'll do a quick detour, right? So like the first time you go out and raise money, if you're a tech startup, you go to an angel, well, probably friends and family. That's the same for everybody. I want to start a restaurant. I need this much money. Hey, Uncle Bob, Thanksgiving is going to be awkward if you don't back me on it. Right? So friends, family, or friends meeting fools, we sometimes call it. When you do like a regular startup, like restaurant, car wash, or professional services like consultancy, like you got a lot of options, right? If you're a consultant or a lawyer or an accountant, you probably don't even need to raise money. You got a couple clients coming with you. You're generating revenue from day one, out of revenue. Like I said, but you're king. Right? You may not get rich very quickly, but you're king because you don't need to take money from anybody.
Exactly.
You want to go car wash? Okay, you need money. But banks know how to write those loans, right? It's like a car wash. We know how car washes work. Like we know how how much water you consume, and you recycle a lot of it, I hope. We know how much like detergent, we know how much labor, et cetera. The only thing we don't know is how many cars are you going to get in a given day. That's the big risk we're taking. But everything else, like it's a business model. We know, we understand the economics. And if it doesn't work, we'll repo the equipment. So we're good with that. So you can get money from banks. So that's where you're going with a traditional startup. With a tech startup, like none of that's true. Can I grow out of revenue? Probably not, because I need to build the product. I got to hire a lot of expensive engineers, even with vibe coding usually. I need to hire salespeople. I need to do all these people. And granted, I'm software, so I'm selling electrons. That's great. But at some point, I got to get past my nut. So yeah, I can't do it out of revenue. Can I go to a bank? Imagine going to a bank with the concept behind Airbnb. Right? It's
you get shot down so fast.
So people are going to rent out their couch to like a total stranger. And then I'm going to go to somebody else's couch and pay to sleep there.
Right.
Nuts. Right. So
or Uber, same thing.
Yeah. Like Uber, like I think you kind of get that, but like we don't know how to underwrite that. Like we get the idea. Right. Okay. People that use their own cars. Okay. Maybe, but it's like a taxi, but it's not a taxi. And then they would be all into like, well, are they 1099 employees? Are they regular employees? Or, like they're too in the weeds, and like there's too much unknown. You can't risk that. Because remember, they're playing around with depositors' money. They can't take big risks. So I can't go to a bank for that. So who am I left with? I'm left with friends and family. And then the other crazy people like me who will do that kind of thing. So like who are people like me? Like if I'm getting in super early, I'm an angel investor, right? If I'm kind of more of a traditional, I've raised money from other people, I'm a VC fund. And I might be a VC fund that gets in at the seed stage, which is kind of really early, just after an angel. Or I might be a Series A, that's a little after the seed. And then you have Series B, C, D, E. By the time you're in B and C, or D, certainly, I'm a growth stage VC. So there are different types of VCs.
I see.
But to get back to the point that we were originally answering, the accelerator sits between the angel round and the seed round. So you got something. It's not just you in a cocktail napkin. Probably you have product. You don't have a lot of revenue. So you're not ready to raise money from VC yet, but you're something. So we would take startups that are kind of at that like jewel in the rough. You're not quite there yet, but we know we can get you there. With our help, you can get there a lot faster. And then we'd help you raise that seed round. That was what I did for about 7 years of my career. So what I did, though, is I had a lot of these companies, and there were a lot of fail points, right? Like they weren't ready for prime time. It's like, have you thought about this? And then crickets. And like, yeah, you got to think about that. So, but we can help them, right? Rather than them learning the hard way through their own mistakes, they learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
So I used to give, like, every week I'd be meeting. I had as many as 12 companies in my cohort at once. I had like 12-hour meetings. Well, sorry, 12 one-hour meetings, not 12-hour long meetings. I had 12 one-hour long meetings every week, like to keep and get them going. And so we'd sit down and I'd be like, okay, listen, Barrett, you got a freemium model. Right. So like there's a free version and people pay to get the other stuff. That's awesome. I've seen a bunch of companies like this before. You're going to live and die based on your conversion rate, your upsell rate from free to premium. So you need to test this thing. And I could go down that path and like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Or I can tell it like a story. I can say, listen, Barrett, I know where you are. We had a company in our program a couple of years ago. And at the time, their actual business was they were a discovery platform for blogs, right? Which made sense back in the day. Where you go in there, you could do some searching, but if you really wanted to get the premium products, you had to pay. And they were, 2 weeks into the program, and we asked them, like, what's your conversion rate? And like, we don't know. It's like, well, what are you going to do to know? It's like, well, we're going to be done programming the premium features in about 2 months. We'll do that, and then we'll know. And I said, well, demo day, when you get to present to all these, early stage investors, is in 2.5 months. So you're going to have 2 weeks to figure out if it works or not. What happens if the numbers are bad? And they're like, well, I guess we're effed, right? I'm like, yeah, we can do better than that. So he said, how about this? You've got the free version working. You know what the premium features are. You know what you want to price them at. Just put up a buy now page and see who clicks. And if anyone clicks buy now, it's like, oh, coming soon, get on the wait list. Doesn't matter, right? Anyone who presses that buy now button, they're ready to buy. You'll get the data you need, right? You will have moved one of these assumptions. We assume we can get 3% of the people to upsell to proven 4% of the people actually did click. Now, we couldn't give it to them because we don't have them, but at least that's a good conversation to have with an investor. I've moved an assumption to proven, which makes my startup less risky. I'm like, that's a great idea. We're going to do that. Next week, they come in pale. I'm like, what's wrong? It's like, well, we did it. Not good. It's like, what do you mean? Like 0.1%, right? Like nobody clicked.
Right.
Oh, we're screwed. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe. What's your plan? And I said, well, in our whole blog discovery platform, it seems like one of the most popular topics is people talking about like, what are the best seats to get at a conference or, at a concert or a sporting event. So we want to take this whole idea. We're just going to double down on that and do something there. Is that okay? And I'm like, of course it's okay. Right now you're at 0, right? Like going anywhere, it's going to be better than 0. Like, okay, great. So in the next 2 months, they built an entire new application, or at least an MVP, a minimum viable product. They tested it. Good. And now that company is SeatGeek. So they're $1 billion plus company. So, okay, I just told you the same thing 2 different ways. One is like, hey, I've seen a lot of these things. You got to go deal with your cost per click and you should test it. And I could tell you how to test it. The other way, I told you a story. Which one did you prefer?
Of course, the story.
And which one's going to stick with you?
The story for sure.
Exactly. And like, I'm not claiming any special line to God here, but like that's why every single religious book is not a, hey, Barrett, here's what you can do and not do. It starts with, in the beginning, God created. It always starts with a story. Always starts with the founders or like the ancestors, because you embed lessons in there and you remember them better.
So what have you learned about storytelling?
After I wrote it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly why they do it that way.
What have you learned about storytelling since before you started your book and then after? I'm guessing you've learned a lot about it.
Yeah. So I had done a lot of writing. So I didn't come from writing. Like when I was in college, I was a horrible writer. I mean, like I remember like one particular paper where I was like cringe. Somewhere during my first startup, I was like late 20s, right? Like someone's got to write the newsletter. Okay, I guess it's you. So I ended up doing it. And it actually turned out to be pretty good. Right? I got my first piece. I still remember it was Inc. magazine. I'd done like a deep dive into like credit card fees and stuff. And there was a new thing, no change pricing. Happened to know someone's like, oh, can we like co-author something? So I had my first piece out there. I'm like, this is interesting. And I got a lot of people calling me from that. So I took from that, like if there's publications that are starved for content. And if you can do something that's halfway interesting and relevant, you can get, in my case, startups coming to me looking for investment rather than me having to like go out there and find them.
For
So it
sure.
turned out that it's something that I enjoyed doing. There are a couple of other data points along the way that led me to it. And then I hit on this formula, which is most of these publications want 500 to 800 word articles. Any longer, people kind of tune out. And they want punchy, one or two key takeaways. And it's usually first person. So I had a very good kind of first person voice that seemed to work for them. I've done like 70 of those articles. Book's different, right? So number one, there's more than one person in the book, right? I mean, if you're writing a kind of boring nonfiction like business book, it's like some dude in Indiana with the same kind of chipper. Hey, I'm going to drop 3 anecdotes, a couple of name drops, and boom, bullet points at the end. By the way, you just read the bullet points and you're going to be fine. It's really like a 20-page PowerPoint spread into like 200 pages. But if you actually have, a novel, people have to sound different. So one of the hacks, I don't know what real authors do. Like they're like, oh, you're an author. I guess so. But I don't know what real authors do. I don't know how they train them in like writing seminars, classes, university, whatever it is.
Right.
They take separately. I just had a couple of people in mind for certain characters. Obviously, the kind of mentor angel investor that's helping the startup along. That's me. But also, there's a guy is unfortunately deceased, who's one of the OGs of like the New York angel investing scene, called John Asen. He looked a little bit like kind of grumpy grandpa, but he was good at what he did. And like we had a good rapport, like we vibed. Passed. I'm like, as an homage to him, I'm going to call the angel investor mentor in the book Jason. And there's a lot, it looks a little bit more like him than me, and there's some of his mannerisms in there. But I wanted a different tone for the founder. I want this kind of, I often say, like, good startups and good founders have well-reasoned but loosely held opinions, right? You should have a reason for what you're doing. If someone says, oh, you should do something else, Barrett, like, well, tell me about kind of why.
Right.
And then if they don't give you a good reason, you're like, thank you. I'm going to go take a look at that. And then you're like, no, I'm not going to do anything about that. Give me a good reason. I have a good reason.
Right.
But they come by and they give like, well, Barrett, you might not know this, but then they start giving you data, or they're like, yeah, 20 different startups. That's kind of like trying to fill an inside straight. It's not a great bet. And okay, that's pretty good data point. I may be wrong. Let me test this. Goes back to what I said before. Let me test it. You're not a weather man. You don't switch, don't switch on a dime because the wind shifts. But you have your reasoned opinion, but they're loosely held. So I want that kind of founder. And it was actually a founder who went through one of my programs back in 2016, maybe 2015, who had that vibe. And he was like so even keeled. And he sounded a lot different than me. I'm like, okay, like I am going to, anytime I write something, I'm just going to, his name's Kofi, I'm just going to assume like, how would it sound if Kofi said it?
Right.
I ran it through that little translator, and that was my hack for making characters sound different. And the other thing I just didn't know was like, I had never written more than 800 words in a row. So I'm like, how am I going to do, 50,000 words? But that actually worked out pretty well. That worked out.
Interesting. Yeah, I bet it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about going from blogs, even, for example, nowadays, like social media posts to writing, like, you know what I mean? It's a completely different game. I could only imagine.
Yeah. So I had one thing going for me. When I was running the accelerator programs, when we were doing the earliest stage, we them a little later stage. When we did the earliest stage, one of the things that I'd done for the company called Dream Adventures is I'd come up with like, hey, we bring all these mentors in to speak, and they speak about different topics. But you know what? Like your mileage varies. Sometimes you have a really great speaker. Sometimes you have a not so great speaker, and they don't cover the information you want. Sometimes you have a great speaker and you want them at like the 2-month mark in the program, because that's when the startups are ready for it, but they're not available then. So you got to bring them in a month early. It's too soon. And I said, guys, this is a little ridiculous. Like, everyone in our company has built multiple startups. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of startups each. We should own this content. We should develop it once, make sure it's got everything that we want, and we bring in like these other people for other stuff, not for teaching, not for content delivery. And they said, that's a good idea. You do it. You raise your hand at a small company with an idea, it often becomes yours. So if you're young, it's an awesome opportunity.
Right.
But just be prepared that, like, if you ask for it, you own it. So I went, okay, why not? Right. So I ended up developing a lot of this content. So when I went to write the book, outlining it was kind of easy. Right. Okay, I'm going to take this fictional startup through all the things that I know I need to teach a startup. And then I needed to brainstorm, like, how do I make it interesting and not just like two guys sitting around looking at a pitch deck in a WeWork conference room.
Right.
And I had a couple of hacks for that. But you want to hear how I wrote the book? It's totally
I would love to.
Again, I don't know what real writers do. I think they force themselves down and bang out 10 pages a day, come hell or high water. I'm running around from meeting to meeting. I grab my phone, I open up the Word doc, and I just start dictating speech to text. I'm like, where am I? Oh, okay, great. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about revenue model. Got it. My idea was that, the founders on the train with his son, they're talking about like the New York subway system and how you can pay the same amount, go everywhere. And the son pushes back, and we're going to talk about all different models. Let's see how far we can go with it. And so I was that weird guy in the corner of a New York City subway car, muttering into his phone, like, and that was it. That's how I wrote it. And I came back like an hour or two later when I had a moment just to make sure, because back then speech to text was a little iffy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I had to come back like within a couple of hours. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what I meant to say. Totally undisciplined. So like I said, I guess I'm an author, but
Right.
at the end of the day, like, it's like that for a startup. You got to find
100%.
you, right? It's you and a co-founder. And it doesn't matter, law firm, tech startup, AI startup. It's still a small band of brothers and sisters to begin with. And everyone's going to do a little bit of everything. And you're not going to do everything perfectly. You just got to be able to do things that work well enough for you so that the one thing that makes you awesome shines through.
No, that's super interesting. Kind of off those lines, what do you feel is a major mistake that founders make moving from an idea to a business model?
Yeah, so some of them just don't have a business model. That's a big mistake. Some of them do what we talked about before. They just jump in and they don't test it. The same way you test the product, you test your model. A lot of them are like, oh, everyone's going to want it. How do you know that? Because I want it. Well, no, you got to go talk to people. Right? You test that as well. Sometimes I talk to founders and I say, listen, I want you to be as clever with your go-to-market or with your business model as you are with your product. Because there are a lot of people out there that can build products. Not everyone can sell. Not everyone knows how to sell. Not everyone can find that thin end of the wedge that gets them out there quick and first. Test it, get a good mentor, right? Get a good mentor who's done it, preferably in your industry, or if not in your industry, maybe with the kind of model you want. It's like, hey, I want to do influencer marketing to get my book, whatever it is, my book or my startup across. Well, have you ever recruited an influencer? No. Well, that could be a little hard. Right? Find someone who's done it before, who can tell you if that's really an option for your startup or if you're just kind of hoping without a prayer. So those are big issues, big mistakes they make. Other big mistakes, they go where they're comfortable going. I have two ways of telling you this one. I can tell you this just outright, or I can tell you the joke. Which one do you want?
Whichever one your heart tells you to say.
Oh, everyone just goes for the joke. Again, I was going to reinforce the point. People like stories. This told this one before. So this old guy, he's in the middle of the street in the middle of the night, looking down. His friend was like, "What are you doing in the middle of the street at like midnight?" He goes, "I lost $20." It's like, "Oh, well, let me help you look for it." So the second guy is kind of looking around. About like 30 seconds later, they're in the middle of the street. There's not a lot of places for $20 to be hidden. He's like, "I don't see it. Where exactly did you lose this?" He goes, "Down that alley." He's like, "Well, if you lost it down the alley, what are we doing in the middle of the street?" Because the light's better here. So what does that have to do with what I'm talking about before? Founders go where the light's better if they're not careful. Let's say you're a technical team and you're really good at building products. Something's not working. The first thing they jump to is like, we need to build more features. Right? Maybe the problem's not features. Maybe your marketing's for crap. Right? The $20 is down the marketing alley. You're just not comfortable going there because it's dark. Well, you got to go there because otherwise you're not getting the money, and vice versa. That's the
Interesting.
idea.
Right.
Right?
So when you have somebody that's kind of going down the wrong alleys or in the middle of the street where the light is there a way that you've seen to kind of steer them in the right direction, or is it just one of those things they have to understand and like go where the light is and then mess up and then have to go down the other alley? You know what I mean?
Step number one is I tell them that joke, and then they give me a courtesy laugh, and then they kind of get it. Some of them be like, "Okay, I get it, but I don't have a marketing guy. How do I do that?" It's like, well, you either got to find someone, find a mentor, or find a mentor who can teach you how to do it. I can give you some ideas. Others are like, "Man, yeah, I totally get it," and they just keep doing what they're doing. So some people don't have it in them. Some people are just like not loosely held opinions, right? They're like, "Gonna do it my way." I'm like, "Sure, I wish you luck." So some people will get it, and if they get it, they're like, "You know what? You're totally right. I need help. I'll try
Let
to
me
help."
ask you a question because I'm curious. I've heard kind of mixed opinions around this. When founders start their business, kind of doing it their way and, sticking to the ideas they've had, not letting other people kind of come at them with different ideas. Where do you think we're at with that?
You already have the answer to that. Loosely held but well-reasoned opinions. Right? If people are giving you well-reasoned, fact-based arguments for why you're on the wrong path, doesn't mean they're right, but it means you need to step back and take a look. Think about it. Well, how can I test that easily? Can I do a test in a week? They're saying it's going to cost me too much to get like people. I'm going to pay too much in ads for these leads. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a BS mock site in like Wix or Squarespace. I'm going to go put $400 on, Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, whatever I'm doing. Let's see what happens. Let's figure out what my cost per click is. Let's figure out like I can convert. And then when you go in there and like an investor's like, "I think your cost of customer acquisition is going to be too high." So, well, it's funny you should ask that. Here are the results of some test buys. I mean, oh, so you actually have data. And then I might push back. I'm like, "Oh, those are low because you're going after niche keywords. If I gave you 10 times the money, could you get 10 times the results?" And then they're like, "We ran out of the keywords." Like, okay, no good, doesn't work. They're like, "Yeah, man, I can go 100 times. There's enough inventory out there. I can keep going." But that's the other thing people mistake. Your pitch deck or, the material that you provide to any lender or, funder, lender, whatever it is, that's not here it is, here's all the information you need, now give me money. That's the beginning of a conversation. All this material is just to get the people thinking about your startup or your venture correctly and asking good questions. Everything, at every stage in the process, down from the elevator pitch to the pitch deck to your meeting, you just want them asking good questions. And if they're like, "What you're doing, but cost of customer acquisition is going to kill you," then you're like, "Funny you should mention that." Boom, data.
Right.
So the ones that I just got to trust my gut on it. Everyone's saying no, but I got to go do that. Well, they're all saying no without any reason. They're all saying no because, Airbnb stuff, that's never going to work. No one's going to do that. Why not? Well, no one does that. Well, yeah, no one does that because they didn't know it was an option. Got any data where people have tried it before? No. Okay. I may be totally wrong, but the only way I can test this is by doing it. And that's also
Right.
what I'm looking for. I don't expect you to have all the answers and proof for everything. There's certain things you cannot test. There's certain irreducible risks. I just don't want to take the uncertainty for stuff that you could prove. So if I can come up with 5 things you could do to move assumptions to proof, to de-risk your startup that way, and it doesn't cost a lot of money, I'm not giving you the money. You don't need it yet.
Right.
And if conversely, if I'm like, "Hey, have you tested this?" I say, "Hey, guess what? I did." And like every time I'm coming up with ideas about how to like test and de-risk, you're like, "Yeah, I did that." Like now I'm excited about you as a founder. And this works, by
That
the way,
makes sense.
works for tech startups, not tech startups. Like a lot of the more traditional startups, more traditional small businesses out there will use Google ads or LinkedIn ads as their customer acquisition source, or they may do content marketing. I'm a consultant. I put out white papers. I write for stuff. So those are things you can test without doing a lot of coding, without spending
Right.
a lot of money.
Interesting. So, kind of along those lines, do you think that founders nowadays have a tendency to overcomplicate things, or do you think they're kind of not
Always, not
overcomplicating?
nowadays. Always. As first-time
Always.
founders have this great big vision of this is how awesome the world is going to be when my vision is totally realized. And that's okay. There's a place for that vision slide. But you got to get there, right? And the game has to work at every step in the process. It can't be like suck, and boom, right? Because you'll never get to boom, right? So
Right.
it'll be like sucks. Well, that's good. I'm going to try it. Oh, that's better. And keep going, right? And by the way, by good and better, I don't mean a little bit better. I'm just got to be, oh, that's twice as good. I'm going to go switch. So, and the key thing for them to understand is what's their superpower? What's the one thing that will get people to say, oh, I need that. I'm going to dump that thing that like, it's not great, but at least it works. I know how it works because you can give me something that's twice as good, 10 times. And I'm willing to take a risk that other stuff may suck that I don't know about because that one thing being that much better is all worth it to me. And I find a lot of startups, believe it or not, don't know what their superpower is. And they start burying you with details. Like there's a format called the one pager. You ever hear about a one pager?
One pager, yes.
Yeah, so it's a one-page description of what your business is. Like rookies try to cram it down to 8-point font and like fill it with everything. No. And this is John Asen, the guy who's like the role model for the book. He's like, I like a lot of white space on my one pager. And I like pictures and white space. I'm like, well, I can't get all the information. I was like, if you can't, you don't know what's important to you. Like, you don't need to tell me all this other stuff. I'll ask you that question later. But remember, it's part of a conversation. The white paper is just to get me focused like, oh, that's really interesting. But what about this? And then you have answers for that. And then we go into the pitch deck. But the beauty of a one pager is that it was a discipline for the founder. They had to figure out like, what is it that's really important enough to put on this and what it's important for the business, but it doesn't go here. It's not at this stage in the conversation. Now, one pagers are sort of fallen out of use. It's a little bit like the cummerbund on your tuxedo. Like technically, you're not really dressed properly without a cummerbund, but like, come on. Last time you went to like a black tie wedding, how many people were actually wearing a cummerbund?
Yeah, 0.
Yeah. So we don't do it anymore, and it's a discipline that I think was not wasted.
So along those lines, do you have any suggestions for early stage founders trying to find their one superpower?
Well, you should have a thesis, right? You go out there and talk to customers, right? And when you get to it, like, hey, listen, I'm building this thing. Here's the pain point we're solving, right? Always start with a pain point. Like maybe if you live the problem, it's even better. It's like, hey, man, I've been in construction for like the past 10 years, and I get all these, like, I'm a subcontractor. I get all these like bids from the contractors. I'm like, hey, well, would you bid on it? And like I spend hours like responding to it, and then they don't win the work. I mean, it's just waste so much time responding to RFPs, requests for proposals. Yeah, like, listen, I live that, by the way. And I've got this new tool that you can use where it will screen the proposal that's being sent to you, tell you if it's in your strike zone or not. I'll just tell you, hey, this isn't in your strike zone, don't bother, let this one pass. And then you can only focus on 25% that you're really good at and you're likely to win. What do you think? Right? And then if that's a real pain point, you're going to see this like, man, tell me more. Right? They're going to lean into it. Usually literally lean into it, but sometimes figuratively. But often you'll see them physically leaning like, really? And it's like, can I use that? No, I haven't built it yet. Oh, when's it going to be built? Like, then you've got a real pain point. And if you got a real pain point and you can actually solve it, that's your superpower. You can solve that pain point. Now, you got to go through and make sure no one else is doing it. Like you're the person you're talking to may just be ignorant about what the options are out there, but that's okay. If they're like, yeah, man, I've seen this like 5 times and like every time I try it, I can't do X, Y, Z. Well, you've learned something there too.
Interesting. No, that's super interesting. I was just talking to somebody kind of about sales, and that was a big thing that I brought up was the pain point is really the foundation of everything. If you can't acknowledge what pain you're solving, then and the solution that comes with it, then you really have nothing to sell. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll take that a little deeper. There's actually 3 dimensions to pain. You want to guess? You want me to just tell you?
I'm not a good guesser.
This one I won't put into a story. Number 1 is just how painful is it? Like, is it a hangnail? Or did I just hit my thumb with a hammer? The intensity. Hat tip to one of my mentors, Steve Barsh, for that analogy. All right.
It's a good one.
Number 2, how prevalent is it? Is it just me that's a moron that keeps hitting my thumb with the hammer? Or does that happen to a lot of people?
Mm-hmm.
Just me, it's like, great, super painful, but I have a market of 1. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
And then the third one, ideally, is frequency. Like, is it just you because you build something once every blue moon? Or like the people who do this all the time have that problem? And if you score highly on all three elements of that, then you got something. Now, you can maybe build a business on something where two of them are strong and the other one, like, well, that's going to be a little harder. So, for example, um, anything that's geared towards the college admissions process, right? Super painful problem, right? Like you're making one of the biggest decisions of your life on very little information. I know I just went, my oldest daughter's already in college. My youngest one's a junior. Like less than an hour ago, I was sitting in our high school talking to the college guidance counselor about strategy. Like I will be absolutely painful, stressful decision. Is it prevalent? At this point, the vast majority of the people in this country go to college. Okay, that's two out of three. Is it frequent? Well, hell's no. I don't want to go to college twice. Right?
Right.
Maybe for grad school, but I don't think it's as painful there. So it doesn't score highly on frequency, which means that you really have to get those people at the right point in their time, in their personal evolution. And then next year, you got to go get a whole new batch of people.
Right.
It's going to cost you on customer acquisition. But in that case, those two pain points are like big enough that maybe they can carry you on the third. In a lot of cases, like your best bet is like, let me see if I can score highly on all three dimensions.
That's a super interesting way to put it. I've never heard it put like that. I really like that. And that's something people can take and, go with too. You know what I mean? It's super impactful for them.
I'm really big on simple but powerful, right? Or at least if it's not simple, it should be memorable. And you can kind of figure the rest of it out.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Kind of hopping to a different question. If an early stage founder that has little traction, what would be some things you would tell them to stop doing immediately and start doing immediately?
My class kind of laughs every time I say this, but it depends. It's like after like the word no, it depends is probably the second biggest phrase in an investor's vocabulary. So I'm looking for an appropriate level of traction for what they are looking to raise. And I would say like what they're looking to raise depends on where they are and where they need to go next, right? So putting that all together, like, okay, listen, 18 months down the road, I want to be at $1 million of recurring revenue because that'll let me raise my next round. So to get there, and really to get there in a year, I have to start my fundraising 3 to 6 months before I actually need the money. So to get to $1 million in that year, well, I got to go build this. I got to go hire this person to do sales, blah, 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 blah. Add it all up. I need $2 million. Okay. So now I'm going to go out there. I'm raising $2 million. I'm talking to you. You're the investor. And I'm like, yeah, I need $2 million. I'm like, well, what do you have to show for yourself right now? Like, I got a cocktail napkin. I'm like, yeah, no, you can get a lot further than that. Even before vibe coding came out, you can get a lot further than that. Well, your customer discoveries, you've proven you have a pain point that's scores high on all three.
Right.
You've tested some key parts of the model. Maybe you got a co-founder who's technical and you've built the alpha version of it. Maybe even have a couple of unpaid customers who are giving you good feedback. Like I'm looking for stuff like that because at that stage, I just want to make sure you have product market fit. I want to make sure like you've got something that the market is thirsting for. Now, fast forward 18 months and you're trying to raise $1 million, or no, sorry, you are at $1 million ARR and you're trying to raise a $10 million round or $15 million round. Like what I'm looking for is like to raise that much money, you should have a decent amount of customers, right? Oh, $1 million. Okay, maybe 2 million, whatever it is that my goal is. Awesome. Let's talk about how you got them. What were the economics of that sale? Right? Can you repeat it? Or you have a good cost to customer acquisition? I know it's not perfect. You can get better, but I want to make sure that at least now it's working well enough.
Right.
I'm going to give you is going to help you scale that. So if the economics aren't working, I'm not going to give you money to just replicate something that's busted. Right? You got to show me that it's working well enough and you can make it work better. So in all cases, what I'm looking for depends on where you are in your journey. So if you're brand spanking new and you haven't done anything, probably not going to give you anything. Because there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can do to get, remember, it's all about de-risking. To move those assumptions over to proven, there's a lot you can do before you even build a damn thing.
No, true. And kind of like you said, even the flashcard example and finding the 3 pain points, those are super valid options for early stage people to go and do that doesn't take a lot of time or money really to figure out those things.
Yeah. And it's a little bit different on the traditional small business startup side, but you should have a thesis, right? I'm going to open up a laundromat. Why do we need another laundromat, right? Well, I looked at the map, right? And there's no laundromat in this area. It's like 20 minutes away. and they don't deliver. And that didn't really matter back when we were small, but we've grown to the size where we can really support a laundromat. Right? So those are the kind of, like, that's got to prove that. Like, why isn't it there already? Oh, because we didn't grow to that size. We couldn't really support it, but now we can. I'm looking for, and this goes under the category of why now. I'm really looking for a why now, no matter what. So if you're like, yeah, we got tons of laundromats, but I just think I can be, why do you think?
Right.
Because I'm going to work harder. Yeah, pass. No one is going into the business saying, I'm a lazy fuck. All right. No one's going into it saying, like, yeah, the user experience and like the design of my site's horrible. Right? Everyone thinks they're doing a good job on those things. You don't have any edge. You got nothing different for me.
Let me ask you a question, because I've heard a lot about, there's a lot of YouTube, TikTok, Instagram reel videos kind of showing you businesses to do. And they're like, try this laundromat, for example. Laundromats are big. They're like, go buy a laundromat for $1.5 million and you could make money off of it. What are your thoughts on that? Copy and paste businesses and
why do you
stuff
think
like that?
they have these ads on YouTube? Because they're making money on it. Doesn't mean you're going to make money on it. So you can make a ton of money on laundromats if you have the right location. Like a lot of the traditional businesses, like retail businesses, three most important things are location, location, location. So if you got a good location, yeah, it could be really great. But if you don't, or if you don't, whatever it is, if you don't have your advantage, you're like, if I can do this, everyone else can do this. Why is mine going to succeed? What do I got to put me over the top? If it's that easy to do, why ain't everyone doing it? Or maybe everyone is.
No, that's super valuable. Okay, real quick, I have some rapid fire questions for you. So what's one piece of business advice you think is overrated?
Ooh, hire 8 players.
You think it's overrated?
Overrated.
Why is that?
You can't afford all 8 players. Like you're a startup. You gotta my first startup, we made our own desks from like lumber. You can't do that. Now you need 8 players for the stuff that matters, but you need everyone else who's good enough that it doesn't fall apart. It's kind of like saying, I'm gonna make hamburgers out of Kobe beef. The whole idea of a hamburger is to take lower quality beef and make it really taste good. So that's overrated. I mean, for you, your co-founder, you guys should be A+. Right? Core to your business, A+. Everything else, just good enough.
Interesting. So moving on, what is the most underrated advantage a founder can cultivate today, in your opinion?
Ooh, their network. People are like, oh, I got all this, that, and the other thing. Like knowing people, especially to get your early customers, like they're like, if they just, a stranger walked in, you should try us. Like, I know this isn't perfect, but I know what works. And I know that if I switch over to yours, I'm going to find other stuff that doesn't work. I'll get like that to work and other stuff will fall apart. Come back to me later when you're a little further along. And you have more proof points. And I don't want to be the first person to do this, but having a network of people who trust you because they've worked with you before. I'm like, you know what, Barrett? I'm a little skeptical, but I know you. I know you know the business. I know you wouldn't put something in front of me where it's just going to be something else that sucks. I'll give it a shot.
No, that makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. What's one thing you believed in early business that you no longer believe?
What do you mean, like models or
more just like ideas? Yeah, ideas.
Branding as an advantage. All right, so we're going to build a brand. It's going to be strong. Like I can, oh, it's like fuzzy, right? You know, you're going to go out there and have this like 1,000 thread count pillow company. How are you going to make yours better than others? But the truth is, there are businesses where really at the end of the day, it's the brand and it's strong. And on a weaker form, like think about all the sites that you go to and like, I'm going to go way back on this one. Like, go on. Okay, what was the number 2 player? Being social. Number 3, no idea. So there's sometimes like, yeah, you can copy all those things, but people only have a certain amount of mental space for it. So if you're first and you did a good experience, and listen, Groupon imploded, so it's maybe not the best example, but if you are early, and even if you don't have any fundamental advantage, like it's a marketplace or, you got the data and there's like economies of scale or whatever it might be, or scope with the data, even if you don't have that, being that one recognizable brand early does have value. I'm still not betting on that because I don't know how to pick the brands. It's not my superpower, but I've become less skeptical about that.
Interesting. Well, all right, Andrew, I appreciate your time. That's all I have for today. I appreciate you for coming on the pod. It was great.
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.